I used to have several long commutes over different parts of my career, whether it was going from my place to the airport, whether it was going from my place to my daughter's school and then to my workplace, whether it was going from my workplace to, childcare and then to whatever. I've always had some long commutes, and during those long commutes, I used to listen to NPR. And one of my favorite shows I used to listen to, which I can't remember the name of it, but I think the host's name was Francis Lamb. He used to be eating and cooking and having a conversation, and you'd hear forks and food and different stuff in the background, and I just loved it. And so, one of the things that you will hear when you listen to me is you will hear me drinking. You may hear the dog barking. You may hear birds tweeting. You may hear a little wind blowing. I might be sipping on coffee. I might be having a matcha. I could be having an herbal tea that's probably a little too hot. You may hear an espresso machine in the background, whether it's at my house or somewhere else. So you can expect that. But you could also sometimes just expect, a little nothing right in the background. Sometimes I'm going to be on camera, sometimes I'm not going to be on camera. For this series, I really wanted to get it out because there's going to be so much additional stuff that comes along with it that I wanted to make sure that you had access to it as soon as possible. And with that, I want to say welcome and welcome and welcome to episode 2 of Trauma to Transition. And this is a groundbreaking series within the radical change or managing your own radical change Vine to Page podcast. This channel, Radical Change Leadership, is all things critical thought leadership. Critical thought leadership, not just thought leadership, but critical thought leadership. In order for you to see the radical change that you want to see in the world and to realize results, you have to put in the work, and that requires radical change leadership. That requires you leading your own thoughts, you leading your own self talk, you leading your own feelings, and you leading your own behaviors. Now, this is not to say that the world hasn't beat your ass and smacked you upside the head and punched you in the gut and done all these things. But what I'm saying is, if you want to see change, you have to be in control of it. You have to be the ones to put the action into it. And that action needs to be inspired based on your desires and your goals and your dreams. And so on this channel, we are going to break down what that looks like in various aspects. And in this podcast, this very specific podcast, Trauma to Transformation, we're going to talk about this aspect of change that really evolves and Mm, revolves. No. Yeah. Revolves around um your own manage change. To manage your own radical change, it revolves around you moving from trauma to transformation. You moving, and that means transforming and transmuting that trauma into something better, right? And in order to do that, you still have to see it, you still have to recognize it, you still have to touch it. And if you're like me and you have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, you have ADHD, you have all of these other little things that add up that are a result of severe child abuse, then hey, this podcast is for you. Because what we're going to do is really embark on this journey and talk about narcissistic abuse and how understanding it and healing from it, it can lead to profound transformation. And I know it because I'm in the process of doing it. I don't know it because I'm an expert. I don't know it because it's something I've been doing for 30, 40 years. I've been working on my healing. But now that I understand that I'm going to be healing from narcissistic abuse, it's a whole nother story. It's a whole nother story. And in this episode, I want to talk about like really what dawned on me and how I really awakened to like light bulb moment that I am the victim of narcissistic abuse, because I think it might be kind of curious to you. So that's what we're going to get into. And I'm going to talk about, my experiences from the standpoint of this cycle of pain, recovery, because unknowingly for years and years and years, I've been navigating the effects of narcissistic abuse. I didn't even know I was doing it. And then, I let you know how I really got to that point, and hopefully it can help somebody else. Now, nothing that I say on here is advice, except for I will tell you, if you are in an unsafe environment, start working on a plan to get the hell out. And I think anybody would tell you that, but I don't give legal advice. I don't give financial advice. I don't give spiritual advice. I don't give political advice. I don't give any advice except for safety, which is keep yourself as safe as possible. Period. End of story. And when it comes to narcissistic abuse, there's a scale of it, right? There's nine different components, but people say you only need to have five to six to really be considered, having narcissistic personality disorder, NPD. There's another scale called borderline personality disorder, and both are on that scale of personality disorders that you need to look up if you want to understand more. I'm going to give you my understandings based on the research I've done. I have been following probably about eight or nine of the probably top 20-ish researchers, including the top two or three. So if you just look them up, you'll get it figured out. Go on YouTube, go on Google, and see who has the most articles, see who has the most videos, see who has the most books, and you'll see the people and what they're talking about, and everything I'm saying is in alignment with that because I've been doing a deep, deep, deep dive. Now, in this episode, episode two, I'm going to talk about like actually like what hit me. Because when I really, really, really realized that I have been the victim of narcissistic abuse is not when you think. First of all, I've written a few books, and the first book that I wrote in 2020, even though I didn't publish it until 2022, and I kept rewriting it because I was scared to post the book that I really wanted, which I'm going to publish this year anyway. It's called Dump DEI, and a new book that I'm going to write that's going to be really written that says what I really want to say. It's called DEI is Done, Dead, Just Drop It Already. And that book is going to come out, but that book was really highlighted what narcissistic abuse looks like at work, especially when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm going to just break it down because my kind of way I think I always thought about narcissism was in general, like, narcissism, white supremacy, they look like the same thing, blah, blah, blah. It's just kind of like a systemic thing. I don't think I looked at narcissism as individual, the way a person could behave and that they could abuse you narcissistically, and that narcissism had these different characteristics, such as gaslighting, which I have been a victim of gaslighting my literal entire life. And that's why I don't talk to my family this day, because I'm not going to be gaslit out of, the things that people have done to me, because I know exactly. Not only did I used to write all that shit down, but that shit is etched in my memory. I can remember the clothes. I can remember the weather. I can remember how things smell. I can remember what was eaten for dinner that day. So literally, nobody could gaslight me, even though they tried literally my entire childhood and even my entire adult life. But the exact moment I realized that not only my mother and my stepfather, but my grandfather, three of my aunts, and at least six girlfriends that I've had, and four, one, two, three boyfriends, and two husbands were all narcissists. And two of the boys and one of the women had borderline personality disorder. And I would say that if my mom wasn't on drugs to calm her down, she probably would have had borderline personality disorder too. But she was on narcotics for a very, very, very long time from my very young age. So I don't know how they suppressed her nervous system and other components of her personality, but I absolutely know that they did because she definitely got less screamy as I got older. And even when I got to the point where I wouldn't really let my mom hit me because I would run or whatever, she wasn't as screamy and as quick with the reactions. Now, I don't know if she wasn't quick with the reactions because she was high. I don't know if she wasn't quick with the reactions because she knew I was going to fight her ass back. I was going to fight her, and then it was probably going to be a thing because I had gotten to a point where I had made up in my mind that I was not going to handle that abuse anymore. I just had decided. And so at that point, when I had made that decision, it wasn't like I made an announcement. It just was like, okay, wake up. You try to do something to me, I'm going to try to kick your ass, or I'm just not going to ever be home so that I'm never in a position to need to fight because I'm just going to make sure I'm not there. And that is basically how I avoided the physical beatings. But then, even when I got older, And my mom wasn't trying to beat me anymore. She was just always putting me on punishment for no reason. Always telling me I couldn't go somewhere just for nothing. Making up reasons why I had to go. I can't go somewhere. Well, you had to clean the house. The whole house would be spick and span. I mean, you could eat off the floor. My house would be so clean because I would clean it. And my mom would say I can't go because I didn't ask her early enough or because she didn't feel like it. It would be all kind of things. Oh, I don't have no money to give you. I'm not giving you any money. It would be all kind of reasons. And I would just be like, fine. I would just go in my room and I would just cry and I'd be like, my mom just really hates me. And She Don't Like You is the title of another piece of work that I worked on. And it really was about like the way I was treated growing up. And what I ended up doing was realizing that once I started putting the pieces together, it really had to do with narcissism and narcissism as as an entity in and of itself, as a disordered way of being human, doesn't like people who naturally want freedom, doesn't like people who are going to fight for their freedom or to stand up against narcissism, right? Against control, against entitlement, against gaslighting, against abuse, against exploitation. All of those things have the same characteristics as whiteness. And so I had never thought about narcissism being the way that you could get individually treated. So in August of 2024, early August, I was working on a symposium inside of the collective, and that symposium was all about um self-awareness, right? And so I did the first night on self-awareness and it went really good. I was super excited about it. And on the second night, I didn't feel good, and then I could not get an internet signal. I went to two different coffee shops. I couldn't get a signal. I couldn't get a signal on my phone, and I couldn't get the app to work. So then I couldn't do the session. So then the third night came, and I was literally sick. I was so exhausted that I could not get out of the bed. And then Sunday came, and I couldn't move. And I realized, oh my goodness, it is me. I am the one who is this big old victim of all these things that have happened to me that I have not taken any time to heal from. I made a statement months ago and I said black women are just not doing the work of healing. And I said it in direct response to the way I was being treated. I said it in direct response to some encounters that I had with black women that were unnecessarily violent. And then I even said it, in conjunction to another relationship that I was in that I realized, oh, this person isn't doing nothing because they are not further than they were when we met, not in any areas at all. And in fact, there was three or four things that was 10 times worse. And then eventually I saw and heard other things that let me know this person is not working on healing shit. This person is who they are and they have no self-awareness. And once that hit me, that hit me. When that hit me, it hit me. So I was doing a deep dive study in a class on self-awareness and all the different components of self-awareness. And that whole first day we really broke down, what is it, who do I think I am, how do I think I show up, do I think I show up authentically, right? Because one part of self-awareness is, are you authentic, are you afraid to be who you are, or are you okay being who you are because you're not really worried about it? Now if you're a black person in America or anywhere that's not black, maybe you have such a fear of your life that no, you don't show up authentically, you show up skipping and grinning. Maybe you show up like, he ha ha all the time because you worried about Mr. Charlie gonna, do something to you or do something to your kids. Okay, if that's the case and that's how you shown up in life, I want you to really consider, do you have a possibility to think about life being different for you? And maybe you and your family could up and roll somewhere if you got the hee and skip and grin all day. Now, if you only got to skip and grin every now and then, like when you go to the bank or, when you go to, take your really nice car to get service or something like that. If you feel like, okay, I just got to do a little bit of code switching now and then, Okay, whatever, maybe your thing's a little bit different, but if you can just be who you are 24/7, 365, no matter who you're in front of, whether you're in front of white people, whether you're in front of non-white people, whether you're in front of your boss, whether you're in front of your coworkers, if you can be yourself 24/7, then I would say that you're good, right? If you can't be yourself 24/7, then somebody is abusing you in some kind of way. If you have to talk a certain way at home or at the job, that is a narcissist controlling you. That's a narcissist controlling you. If you are working on somebody's job and you know you're not getting paid what you're supposed to, which nobody black is, that's a narcissist exploiting you. If you try to bring something to somebody's attention and they're like, well, who the hell you think you're talking to? I know everything. Okay, that is that whole, grandiosity, superiority thing. Okay, if you try to say, well, what you're doing is hurting me and is really having a negative impact on my life, and they say, well, I don't give a fuck, that's they don't have any empathy. Okay, if you say, well, I don't know what makes you think that you could just treat me like this and blah, 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 and this is not how it goes, and nobody else does this, and blah, blah, blah. And they say, well, because I can, that's entitlement. And then we start getting on that list, right? Into the five, six, category of how many traits is on the list. So it's important for us all to understand narcissistic abuse. And the way that it hit me was I was like, how come I've started thinking about all these things that happen that, not only things my mom did to me, but things she let other people do to me. Then there's the triangulation. And then ganging up on me and getting somebody else to gang up on me, triangulation. And then it's the gaslighting, trying to make me think I'm crazy. Then it's like really doing mean shit, like giving my stuff away. Being jealous, right? My mom never showed up to anything because she never wanted nobody to say I was good at anything or anybody to tell me I was proud. It didn't matter if I had all A's on my report card or if I had B's and C's. It didn't matter. She was not coming and showing up. She never showed up for anything ever. And then even the one graduation that my family lied and said she came to, I was like, well, how come I ain't see her there? And they were trying to tell me, oh, you just didn't see her. No, y'all just gaslighting and lying. My mom did not come. Her ass was home in the bed. Just like you gonna tell me she wore the dress that we picked out. She wore a casual ass dress to my wedding. Why? Because she chose to. And y'all gaslit me about that shit too. And so, literally, right, when you really start to understand what narcissistic abuse looks like, and then it's easy to understand how come you always had all these painful things, all these painful moments. I was telling a story earlier about how when I used to buy a Mother's Day card, I used to make sure it didn't say nothing but Happy Mother's Day. That it could have been for Mrs. Jones down the street, but I wanted to make sure it didn't say nothing nice, nothing special, because my mom wasn't nothing nice and nothing special, and I made sure that she knew it. I did not gaslight her. I did not feed that stove like she was some mother of the year. I let her know all the time, listen, you was terrible and I want to make sure I'm nothing like you. And that was my goal once I knew I was going to be a mother, is that I wasn't going to be anything like her. And so understanding that even though I didn't know I was being narcissistically abused, I didn't understand that those were narcissistic personality traits. What I knew was that I was being abused, and I knew that child abuse makes people be fucked up in some kind of way. So, what I did was I spent my very early, my adolescence and teenage years always in the library reading shit about self development and reading that back in the day, Tony Robbins and all of that stuff back in the day, because I was always trying to make sure that I had a good mindset, because I knew my mom was trying to mess me up, trying to make me think I was crazy, trying to me think I deserved to be treated so terribly, trying to make me think that how I was treated was normal when no other kid in my family was treated like that. And they all let it happen. And so what I did was recognize that, the cycle was continuous, right? I recognize that if I think about early memories and I think about the early times of abuse, like I think about my mom literally calling me fatty, literally calling me blackie, literally, like calling me leftover. Like I remember my mom just had these names. Like if y'all think that Donald Trump was wicked with the names, my mom had names. She was just like him. She was just like him. It's her that age group, those baby boomers, they quick with the calling somebody some old nasty name, but as soon as you call them something, they gonna go off on you. And that was, what she used to do. And I remember now thinking, or now I think back, like if I would have known it was called narcissistic abuse, and if I would have known, like, okay, these are the strategies. I mean, I pretty much was implementing these strategies without knowing. But the whole like go no contact, I would go no contact all the time. Like, you ain't gonna talk to me crazy. Fuck that. I have boundaries. I'm a human being. And I would do it all the time. I would do it as a child. I'd be like, I'm not gonna talk to you except for the bare minimum. And I would do it for months and months and months. One time I think I did it for 2 years. I was like, I'm not saying shit to you. Fuck you. And then my stepfather triangulated me one day, um, and they, tried to make me feel bad. Time I gave my mom asthma and all this kind of bullshit, and that was, what they used to do. Now, like, I know what the different pieces are. Now that I know the definitions, now that I understand the disorder traits and the characteristics and the differences, now it's like everything makes sense to me. All those relationships make sense. It makes sense that if I got brought up by a bunch of gaslighting and a bunch of exploitation and a bunch of abuse, right? Nobody never taking my side. Everybody, acting like I'm crazy. It would make sense that I would keep on getting in relationships with those people. And every time that there was an opportunity to get into a relationship with a normal person, those relationships never worked out. Those relationships only last for a minute. And then looking back, I remember my mom making me break up with all the good boyfriends because she told them all some kind of bullshit about how I was trying to get pregnant and all these kind of stupid lies when I was literally on the pill from age 16 to the age of 32 when I got pregnant with my daughter while I was on the pill. So it was super crazy. But anyway, it just goes to point to this is how this stuff works. And unless you take and have the understanding of it, you are going to be a victim to it. One of the really good things about the experts that are out here on YouTube, out here on the internet, and that are, really credible, because they've talked to many people, they've documented the stories, they've been the victim themselves, they're in recovery, they're healing in the process, and they teaching other people how not to fall victim. Those are the ones that you wanna watch. You don't want to keep on reading about the stories and this is what my ex used to do and this is my mother and this is that, because once you remember one or two things and you connect it to narcissistic abuse, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, and the floodgates are gonna open. And then every time you sit back and you think about something horrible and something fucked up and something terrible, you're gonna be like, damn, they got me. Like, you were the victim of narcissistic abuse, right? And if you were the victim of narcissistic abuse, I'm going to recommend that you get professional help of some sort. Literally, I'm going to recommend that you pay a person to help you, whether that is you join, a community like mine for $35 a month or $350 a year, whether go to a licensed professional, or a somatic therapist or whatever, but get some professional support, right? In addition to that, do some work in terms of journaling and documenting for yourself, your feelings, how you felt. Think about yourself now. Think about what you would have did to protect yourself if you would have knew back then what you knew now, or whatever, right? But forgive yourself for any past perceived failures and recognize that you took care of yourself the best way you can, and your mind and your body did what it could to keep yourself safe at the time. And now you get to heal all of that stuff and you get to be the best version of you, and you get to be everything um in you and for you. You get to do that, despite anybody else, right? If you live in a house with somebody that is in the process of actively abusing you, start looking at plans and steps, right? There's this whole process called gray rocking where you just become boring as shit. You start with the yes, no, and you start literally to fade out. You don't tell them nothing, and you just start making your little plans, and you just start getting boring, and hopefully they break up with you. But if not, hopefully you can ease on out, right? Look up gray rocking, look up the experts that have been talking about narcissism for years and years and years, and see what they recommend. But really keep yourself safe is the recommendation, right? This ain't medical advice, this ain't legal advice. My advice is keep yourself safe. That's the advice I'm gonna get to all people at any times in any sort of relationship. um and really, like, when you look at how society gets us to blame everything on other people, and society gets us to blame people that we really don't have the ability to hold accountable. Like, we can't hold the president accountable. We can't hold banks accountable, car companies, oil companies. We can't hold anybody accountable for anything they do. But let a citizen go out and try to protest with 3 or 4 thousand other citizens, and the government will gas the fuck out you. So we all know what it is, right? So when it comes to trying to do this work of putting the blame in the right place, right? It's important to understand that everybody in our lives has a choice about how they treat us. And for those who have a personality disorder, some places I'm reading they say 1 out of every 6 people has it. Some are saying 1 out of every 5 people has it. Some are saying 1 out of every 4 people has it. Depending on how many people really have a personality disorder, whether it's full blown narcissism or just a borderline personality disorder, the bottom line, right, is that these personality disorders exist. And even if somebody's only doing 4 of the 9 behaviors, it's still harmful. If somebody's doing 3 of the behaviors all the time, they always gaslighting you, they're always lying to you, they're always exploiting you, and they are always, you know, blowing up and making things bigger than they are every time you open your mouth. It's still emotional and psychological abuse. They don't have to be doing all 6 things that characterize them as a narcissist to mean that it's harmful. And that is the part that really got to me. It was like, not only was the stuff harmful, but these people were actual narcissists. And all of them have like 7 and 8 traits. All of them have a lot and was brought up in a lot of trauma. And then when I think about the relationships that I was in with the people that were narcissists and had 7 or 8 of the traits, they was brought up in extreme trauma. And I just said, damn, that would have been me, right? I was brought up in extreme trauma in my house. Even though I used to fight and do everything to try to keep myself, it was still extreme trauma. I mean, I got beat one time so bad. I'll tell this story, and it wasn't even by my mom. It was by this man that I used to call Uncle Joe. Uncle Joe beat the shit out of me when I was like 8 years old because he thought I was doing drugs, and I didn't know the word paraphernalia and what it meant. And he kept on trying to say, I found your paraphernalia, I found your paraphernalia. I was like, I don't have it. I didn't have it. It's not mine. I didn't know what he was talking about. I never heard the word. Then I thought he was talking about like an art set. I don't know why I thought I was like, what are you talking about? What art set? What art set? And he was like, no, your paraphernalia. And I was like, I don't have no paraphernalia. Like I didn't know what that meant. Come to find out, it was a bag, a zipper bag, and looked like a shaving bag that men would have. And it had needles. It had the little rubber things you wrap around your arm. It had some weed, rolling papers, lighter, matches. I was like, it's not mine. And I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what none of that stuff was. Now, I seen roller papers before, uh, but I thought they was called rolling papers. I didn't know it was called drugs. And I definitely didn't know the word paraphernalia. Meanwhile, this man beat me like another grown man would beat a man with a belt, even though I was saying it's not mine. He was telling me I'm lying. And then uh, somebody stopped him and was like, I don't think it's hers. And then I was like, it's not mine. I don't know what you're talking about. It's not mine. Come to find out, it was um, the his nephews, and I think his nephew is either 10 or 11 years older than me. So if I was 8, that means he was 18 or 20 at the time, right? If he's 8 years old, he still was 18, but it wasn't mine. And the fact that it was hidden in my room was why I got beat for it. Now, looking back, I wouldn't say he beat me because he was a narcissist. I think he's beat me because men were allowed to beat women. And he probably thought if he beat me one good time, I would stop doing drugs. And after that, he was so nice to me. But I don't remember him apologizing. But he beat the shit out of me. And I was mad as shit. I ain't talked to him for a long time either. I would sit right there and be like, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then how about a couple years later, that movie came out. And Celia said, you let Harpo beat me. I was like, mm-hmm. These women will let a man beat you. Women will let a man beat you. And men will let a man beat you. That's what we do to each other as black people. That's what women do to each other as women. That's what we do. We harm each other in this society because our society is a society of narcissists. Our society is this um deeply rooted in pain. That's what slavery is. It's nothing but pure pain. Slavery is pure pain, and nobody wants to atone for it. And until we do something about it, it's going to stay there. So then you have the realization of recovery, right? And what that is all about is looking at and saying, okay, this is going to be a journey to really, really navigate this recovery. Um, because it went so unrecognized so long. And it's not that I thought anything was wrong with me. I just thought, I had these, really violent experiences growing up, and I went to therapy for so long. I just made me think, okay, well, yeah, I guess I figured out all these coping ways to deal with it, but I didn't think that I still had so much trauma and pain in my body, which I do. Because anytime I take some time to really think about it, anytime I really sit down to process it, then I feel it, and it is a full on it's a full on experience. So the other part, right, that I think is really important for everybody to get, is that, when you have verbal and emotional abuse all the time and then physical abuse sometimes, that's really bad. When you blame the system instead of the people perpetrating the behavior, that's really an issue. And then when people know that you're being abused and won't help, that's a whole nother problem. And so then, right, when abuse gets normalized, it makes you think that it's normal. So then, right, really getting into like what are the characteristics of NPD? What are the characteristics of BPT, right? What is narcissistic personality disorder? What is borderline personality disorder? And why is it important to do your own research and look stuff up and be able to think through stuff instead of just listening to everything people tell you? I was listening to a lady and I was feeling her. I probably listened to maybe 10 videos. And then next thing I know, she started talking about Markle is a narcissist. Why is Meghan Markle? What about anything you know about Meghan Markle as you watching her on the news will tell you that she's a narcissist instead of Kate being a narcissist, instead of Charles being a narcissist. I mean, seriously, instead of the cheater boy being a narcissist. Like you picking on the black lady. So like that instantly I just lost all respect and credibility for me because it instantly told me that she was anti-black. Because what has Meghan Markle ever done to anybody except for my own business? Because she said y'all treating me in a way that I don't like to be treated. So that makes her a narcissist. Give me a break. Mm-mm. So I stopped listening to that lady. But that's why you want to do research and make sure that you're looking for credible sources and doing your own critical thinking. You want to be able to identify some of these traits of narcissism. You want to be able to identify gaslighting. You want to identify grandiosity. You want to be able to identify entitlement. You want to be able to identify a lack of empathy or what they call cognitive empathy. You're going to meet a lot of people on the internet that talk about empathy, talk, 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 talk. All they doing is talk. They do not have a real empathy because when they have the ability to help somebody, they don't do it. When they have the ability to demonstrate empathy in real life, they do not do it. But they could talk about it all day and they can come off as authoritative because that's what narcissists are good at. Because everything about them is phony, including the empathy. It's all phony. And once you know that, and once you get it, because you've been able to identify those behaviors of narcissism and borderline personality disorder, um, that's how you do it, right? So the next thing you do is you just start reflecting on your own experiences. And that's when it might hit you, right? Because I really got like sad, like, damn, I really was a victim of a lot of narcissistic abuse, and it's pretty horrific, and I didn't like it. But then I said, okay, now I have evolved in my own understanding, and now I can really look back and look far, look ahead, and say that I have a real good thing ahead of me, right? I have this journey that I'm going to take from trauma to transformation, and I'm not only going to change the trajectory of my life, but I'm going to change the trajectory of other people's lives by helping other people have points of reference and things that they can point to, so that they won't be a victim of continued narcissistic abuse over and over and over and over and over. So, I'm so excited that I got to share with y'all how I realized I was a victim of narcissistic abuse. And in this next episode, episode 3, it's going to be like, what will we do, baby, without us? Family ties, right? The narcissistic patterns in my family of origin, and I'm gonna break them down. That might end up being a couple, but I'm going to break down the patterns so y'all can see it, and then let's ask some questions so you can see those patterns in your own life. So, hey, 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 welcome, welcome, thank you, and welcome back. I appreciate you joining me. And I want you to, if you this episode resonated with you, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share. But don't share trying to tell people you a narcissist if you do all these things. If you sharing it, you just sharing it because like, oh, check out this podcast because it's something in it that resonated with you that I hope might resonate with other people. And stay tuned for episode 3 where I'm going to start talking about the patterns in my family of origin, and you can check out the patterns in your family of origin. And when you are ready to do some more, go to my stand store and check out the other links down below. See you soon.